into our final countdown. Look at the countdown on the Uganda. Here we go. 9 seconds. So we are away. It's the first World Championship of 2019. 10 teams. It will be 2 men and 2 women. We think the men, they have free choice, but the slightly longer legs are the first and last stages of the 4. And more for some interesting matchups in the team forward for this event. Yes, as we see it, we here in the time who are field chasers and you run against each other. So they're going to be going big fight. Starting to edge away at the end of the first minute. He's taking an advantage on at least a guy that he sure likes to beat, but Ethiopia is right behind him. Well, we think towards the later races today it will suit marathon type runners, but these are steeplechase specialists, arch rivals in first and third. This is a bit of a spectator spot around the course as well. Mark Collins, the chair of the local organising committee for Edinburgh 2000. As well. They've done everything to set lines for the hotel. You to be ready, all you good spectators, to cheer the runners. The first that will be entering the roof. Let's see how fast they can do it. He's only seconds away. He's just 10 meters behind. It's not a large gap. No, he might be able to close that. And actually, there is a camera that's Morocco, but it is Ethiopia right now. And then he's going downhill again, and then he has only a few hundred meters left before he needs to change to the next runner. But Ethiopia is going to lead at the first round. So those gaps look big. It's only really 1.5 to 2 seconds between first and second. About the same back to third. USA in fourth still challenging. They take that back turn.
As we head over to the changeover, it's a wristband that must be passed over on this 20-metre section of the course. One down, 3 legs to go. Ethiopia, Kenya, USA, Morocco in that order.
Well, I thought the Ethiopians would be tough here, Rob, because they haven't got that weak link. Bone Chiluke here was in the 2017 relay team that took the silver medals 2 years ago in Uganda. She's a 4:08 1,500-metre runner. And for Kenya here, Mwazia is a 2:04 800-metre runner. But I think she might be the weak link for the Kenyans. We'll see if she gives a good account of herself. The Kenyan there in red in second place. She, on paper, doesn't look up to the task of staying with Chiluke.
And 2 interesting things happened on that opening leg, Tim. First of all, Kipruto lost 15 or 20 metres to Ndale, not as well known. And we've got, well, just a tired figure of Rui, the Spaniard, coming home. He's found that tough going. So Kipruto lost 15 or 20 metres to a man who finished third in the Ethiopian national champs. And El Bakali went backwards up that incline as well. That tells us that the short, sharp incline at the museum is going to play a very, very big role in how all these races turn out.
Absolutely right. Yeah, it was surprising, wasn't it, that if you drive hard up that hill and you're feeling good about it, you can take 20, 30 metres out of somebody in the space of, well, about 100 metres. So it was Ethiopia, Kenya, USA, 1, 2, 3 when they came in. But how will it be at the end of this second leg and the halfway point?
They have got a very, very good team, the Moroccans, but it's quite a big deficit. And Osika of the United States is a good runner. She's got a 4:06 PB over the 15. Both her parents took part in the US Olympic trials back in 1988. But those are the gaps at the moment. It's Ethiopia from Kenya, USA and Morocco, and then a 20-second gap back to the Spaniards. That's why Victor Rui was picking himself up off the ground after that lung-bursting exertion on the opening leg. All 10 teams now on to their second leg. China 8:08. A tough opening circuit for them.
Well, Rob, that Chinese athlete on the first leg was Xinyang Zhang, and she took 8:08. She was over 2 minutes behind the Ethiopian first leg male runner Ndale. So a monstrous gap has opened up just on one circuit.
Chiluke's doing a good job here. Just got to sit in behind the Kenyan. And what a fine run by Shannon Osika, the 25-year-old. I think she's closing on the 2 East Africans, Tim.
Well, Osika is a world-class 1,500-metre runner. She's won 4:06. There's Mao of China on the second leg. Now, he'll be wanting to make inroads. The problem is he's so far behind, he hasn't really got a target. He's running in isolation back in 10th place. Very, very tough for him, therefore, to gauge his effort and get it right.
Tanzanian men, so
We'll see plenty of Ethiopian and Kenyan flags being waved and encouragement coming from inside the course. Certain areas here are tailor-made for spectators, like the beer tent, but there are other sections of this vast complex where it's only team officials who you'll be able to see, which is why there are sudden gaps lacking spectators. But where we only have officials, we'll see them shouting encouragement from the side of the course.
Interesting psychology here, Rob, because Bone Chiluke, the Ethiopian in second place in yellow, took over in the lead. She let the Kenyan go past her and take over the lead, and she's sort of sitting on the Kenyan now. Now, for my money, in a relay event of this nature, that is the wrong tactic. She needs to press on and run to her optimum tempo for this one circuit she's got to do. She's got to give her team every metre, every second she can when she hands over, not sit in on somebody and out-sprint them as though that is a one isolated little competition.
Maybe she's paid heed to your words, because Chiluke is now in the lead and Mwasa just having to hang on. Still a good run from Osika. It's Farkousi of Morocco in 4th place, and bear in mind the Moroccans have got Igida, the brilliant 1500-metre runner, and Rababe Arafi going anchor leg for them. Very sticky mud there. It's only about 8 or 9 strides, but I'm sure that's energy sapping, even though they're only going through it once, and the senior men and women will have to negotiate that 5 times. That's the American in 3rd.
Yeah, Shannon Asika just trying to regain contact with those two. That gap of about 25 metres between Asika there, the American near bottom of picture, chasing that leading pair, is just a little too far for her to feel sort of psychologically in contact with them. She needs to really grind it out now to try and close over this last half mile or so left.
This will be fascinating here as we come round towards the museum for the 2nd time. At this very stage on the first lap, Conceslas Kipruto looked pretty smooth, and then all of a sudden Kebede Ndale took 15 or 20 metres out of him on this short but brutal incline. Well, let's see how the Ethiopian copes with this.
How the Ethiopians would love to get one over on the Kenyans, who beat them in the inaugural relay 2 years ago in Uganda. It was Kenya, Ethiopia and Turkey 1, 2, 3 then, so we know we're going to get one new team on the rostrum. Turkey don't have a team today, but the Kenyans beat the Ethiopians, and how the Ethiopians would love to defeat their East African rivals today.
Well, she's not pulling away just yet, but they had a couple of stumbles there over that very, very thick sand. Now the gap begins to open. The Kenyan was hanging on, Mwasa, but now she's being posed some tough questions by Bone Chiluke.
Yeah, that's a great run from Chiluke. She's now running across near the top of the museum roof. She turns left on that very steep downhill. Bit of breeze up there. They're pretty high up, don't forget.
This has been a good second half to this leg by Chiluke, who will hand over to Tadesse Lemi. Just a little bit of a wobble there. She's moved right across to her left-hand side of the course, and then she'll come round to this, what we're calling the BMX bank. She didn't need it on that occasion. Now the wristband comes off, a real acceleration at the end, and it's game on. Ethiopia from Kenya, the 2 East African powerhouses, but at the moment this is looking good for the Ethiopians. On paper, not as classy a quartet as the Kenyans, but they're really posing some tough questions. As Igida now goes on to the 3rd leg, herring round that bend, the 1500-metre runner from Morocco.
That was a fabulous leg by the Kenyan. They'd stay in contact with the Ethiopian on the 2nd leg. Mwazia ran really well, much better than I expected up against Chiluke. And of course the Kenyans on this leg now have Elijah Manangoi. This Kenyan is the reigning World, African and Commonwealth 1500 metres champion, Manangoi, and he could really pour it on here.
Such a good PB as well, Tim. He's a 3:28 man. Remember, him and Timothy Cheriot worked very well together in the World Championships. The Ugandans beginning to make an impact here. That's Chilangat going on to the 3rd leg. As Jordan Mann, known as J-Man, he made the final of the US champs in the steeplechase last year. He's on the 3rd leg for the United States. But Manangoi has instantly closed down the gap on Tadesse Lemi.
79 for John Tracy.
He looks so easy, Manangoi, doesn't he, Tim? Almost a bit similar to Asbel Kiprop. Very thin legs, but in that frame is an immense amount of power.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the thing is that powerful legs are a real help today because of these hills. On the downslopes as much as anything else. I well remember a couple of years ago, Bekele up against Mo Farah on a downhill in the Great North Run, a half marathon. Very steep downhill on the roads. And Bekele powered down it. Mo Farah lost 30 or 40 metres within 100 because of the lack of absolute leg strength.
So it's Manangoi, the reigning world champion, African champion and Commonwealth champion over 1500, up against Tadesse Lemi of Ethiopia, just 20 years of age, made the semis of the World Juniors a few years ago over the 800 metres, but on paper it is the Kenyan who's the class out of the two of them, but nothing to separate them as they begin turning their attention to a short, sharp incline, and then they'll drop down again and turn to their left for that water obstacle, which only really seems to be taking the best of them. 6 or 7 strides. They're skipping through it, aren't they?
They are, and it's not deep. It's relatively minor issue on this course, even though there's been much written about it. These two teams are a long, long way back.
The Ethiopian flags flying high once again on the inside of the course.
He also needs to balance his arms.
Always an interesting balance of power shift between the Kenyans and the Ethiopians. They trade the team titles. They did so in this inaugural edition 2 years ago. Kenyans actually won that by quite some margin. They were never behind because they put Asbel Kiprop on the lead leg.
Rob, this is very tough for Igida, the Moroccan, back in third place. He took over 13 seconds behind Ethiopia. So does he charge at these two and maybe sacrifice himself and misjudge his effort? There he is, just coming shot in the background. He's certainly not 10 or 12 seconds behind now. Look at that. Igida is closing on them. He's what? Maybe 4 or 5 seconds down. He's having a really good run. This is the man who in the last 3 Olympic 1500-metre finals has finished 5th, 3rd and 5th. And he's a very, very classy 5,000-metre runner as well.
Just at the back of shot there, Igida. And still it's Menangoy leading from the Ethiopian youngster. But this is a fine, fine effort from Igida. It is a classy quartet that they've got. And it's Arabi Arafi, a very good 800-metre runner from Morocco on the anchor leg. The Ethiopians have got Fantu Werku, who got a World Junior Silver over 15. Kenyans have got Winfred and Beefy, who was on the second leg for the East African nation when they picked up that relay title in Uganda 2 years ago. It is a reasonably big gap, but Igida has done well to even get the Moroccans back into the conversation as we begin edging towards the anchor leg as J-Man manages to negotiate his way through the mud. Arms down by Menangoy's side there. There's no easy way to take on these descents, is there?
No, there isn't. No, I mean, but of course all these athletes incorporate plenty of hills into their training. They just might not have done it at this sort of speed, especially the middle distance guys. But you can see now the Ethiopian Lemmy working hard to stay with Menangoy, who's digging deep here. This is... they've begun to turn the screw here. This is effectively the home straight if it were a track race. That's a lovely shot, Rob, isn't it? Really driving, leaning into the hill, working hard with the arms. Look at Menangoy, almost bent double leaning into that slope on the museum roof.
And the Ethiopians are really asking the questions of the Kenyans on this short, sharp incline. Once again, Menangoy coming under some pressure, just as Conseslus Kipruto did on the opening leg when Ndale moved ahead of him. This is good stuff from the Ethiopians. Many of them train up at Ntoto, which is 2,500 metres above sea level, and they negotiate some brutal descents there. Lemmy is pulling that wristband off. There's a 20-metre changeover zone. The wristband must be carried around the course, a bit like a baton. Well, Menangoy has hung on, but I think Lemmy got the better of him by a couple of metres there on that incline.
Now, Fantu Werku for Ethiopia takes over with, what, about a 5-metre lead, just a couple of seconds. And the Kenyan second place in Mbithi. And the second leg back in 2017, she has a gold medal from 2 years ago in Uganda.
Igida did a very good job halfway through that leg, but I think he lost ground on that steep hill because where at one stage he was only 6 or 7 seconds adrift, all of a sudden the Moroccans have a big, big gap to try and claw back. And even though Arafi is an excellent 800-metre runner, that will surely be far too big a deficit to try and claw back Mbithi and Werku. Kenya against Ethiopia on the last leg, with the Americans trying to claw back a very, very big deficit of 17 seconds on the Moroccans, who currently occupy the bronze medal position.
Elena Fulton heading out for the USA on the fourth leg. She lives in Colorado, so maybe used to the hills, but I feared that might happen to Igida, the third leg runner for Morocco. He committed himself over the first half of this loop, but really ran hard to close on the leading pair and then suffered in the last third or so. And ironically, of course, the biggest hill is in that last 400 metres or so. And I think Igida came in over 20 seconds down. You can see the splits there on the two teams ahead of him. He lost quite a bit of ground.
Bossy of Spain coming home, and it will be Esther Guerrero. Guerrero has been a very experienced member of the Spanish mixed team who've won medals at the last 2 editions of the European Championships, silver and a gold, but a long, long, long way behind. Kenya from Ethiopia, they've just gone through shot. There they are now. Now, is it the slightly more experienced Winfried Mbithi, who ran the second leg for the Kenyans en route to the inaugural gold in this event 2 years ago? Or can the youngster Fantu Werku, who got a World Junior Silver in 2016 over 1500, can she somehow find something on that last incline? So far, Tim, the Ethiopians seem to have coped quite well with the big hill on the museum so close to the finish line.
No, exactly right. The Ethiopians have looked fantastic on that final slope. The Moroccans, well, they haven't produced the challenge that many expected. But, you know, there's one issue is that these are mostly middle-distance runners, but you put an 800-metre runner over a very hilly 2,000-metre circuit, and that's asking a lot. So, for example, Mbithi here ran leg 2 in 2017. Werku, a silver medalist in the World Junior 1,500 metres. She should have the strength, Werku, to hang on to Mbithi here, and it could come down to a sprint in that final, what, 120 metres off the final turn?
Yes, it's a long drag down to the finish. At least that is a downhill section, but they'll need it by then. This is one of the 2 longer legs, as we see Eleanor Fulton there. She was part of the US team who finished 6th in a mixed relay back in the Kololo Independence grounds. And the Kenyan flags are waving. They have dominated the Ethiopians. They trade team golds and individual golds, but in the overall medal standings of World Cross Country, the Kenyans are the leading nation by quite some margin. The Ethiopians are catching, but they're a long way behind.
Well, sadly, only 2 European teams have entered for this one, Rob. Spain and Denmark out of the 10 teams that started. That's a little saddening for myself. I'd like to have seen more nations up against Denmark and China there. I'd love to have seen a British squad here. And Belgium and the Netherlands don't have a single athlete at these championships, which is very, very regrettable for my money.
Well, the organisers have shown their passion and their commitment to cross-country. And speaking of passion, as they negotiate this water, 7 or 8 strides skipping through, apparently the IAAF president made a rousing speech yesterday extolling the virtues of cross-country, which he's always done, actually, hasn't he? He's always maintained that great middle-distance runners need a little bit of toughness in the winter with cross-country, as the Ethiopian pulls away from Mbithi, and this is her bid to turn silver from 2017 into gold here in Aarhus.
Yeah, that's a fabulous surge by Werku. Boy, oh boy, that could be a winning gap she's opening up now. The mud and some more hills yet to come. But Werku here could just have established a lead that will give her team gold and turn around the result from 2 years ago, Rob. Going back to Sebastian Coe. Yeah, Seb's got running, road running, middle distance running and cross-country in his blood. He was a member of Hallamshire Harriers up in Sheffield in the north of England. That's a Harriers club. That screams cross-country. He loves this sport.
Well, long-term, there is this bid to get cross-country back in the Olympic Games. It last appeared in Paris in 1924. Certainly, unique courses like this will help that cause. But this is an absolutely superb acceleration from Fantu Werku. Not as experienced as Winfried Mbithi, but she has pulled away from the Kenyan in fine style and has opened up, what, 50, 60 metres in the space of about a quarter of a mile. And Mbithi is a beaten woman in second place. It will be silver for the Kenyans.
Well, a belated birthday present for Fantu Werku here. She was 20 yesterday. What a run she has had. The celebrations will have to come tonight. She obviously put them off last night, Rob. She went out in the heat of the World Championships in London 2 years ago, but this is probably the run of her life. She has destroyed the Kenyan runner on this final leg.
Well, if we needed this mixed relay to give us a clue as to how this course would affect the status quo of global cross-country running, the Ethiopians have passed the first test with flying colours. They have destroyed the Kenyans on almost every circuit with this incline. There's still no sight of Winfried Mbithi, but this is a wonderful run from Fantu Werku. Tim possibly called this one. They didn't necessarily have an individual standout name, but they didn't have a weak link.
They didn't have a weak link, and this is their absolute ace card they pulled out on the final leg. What a run she's had. This is probably competitive with a lot of the male runners on this circuit today, Rob. She takes the final corner. The Kenyan out of sight now, Mbithi. She has won this for her team.
Well, it's a glorious run into the finish. For the inaugural gold medal in 2019, Fantu Werku has the entire finishing straight all to herself, and it's gold to Ethiopia. They upgrade their silver from 2 years ago in fine, fine style. Tough course, brilliant quartet. That is a sensational victory. Well, as Werku accelerates, we still wait to see the team in second coming home. And what about that?
Boy, oh boy, Arafi, world-class middle distance runner that she is for Morocco, has torn around. She's a 3:59, 1,500 metre runner. She had a brilliant summer last year, and she's poured it on here. And Mbithi has had a nightmare there, Rob, over the final half mile or so.
Wow. From being the favourites and having Conseslus Kipruto taking them into that hill in the lead, it has gradually, ever so slowly, unravelled for the Kenyan favourites. What a run from Arafi. Huge credit as well on the penultimate leg to Abdulati Agida, who kept them in the mix. And this is not a bad effort from the Americans either. They had a big deficit to claw back, and it was a tall order for them to try and upgrade from fourth to a podium position on that last leg. But a fine run into the finish from Eleanor Fulton, USA fourth. Two great stories there. The Ethiopian acceleration with Fantu Werku on the last leg, and what a brilliant anchor leg from Rabe Arafi, upgrading a certain bronze to a silver as Mbithi jogged across the line, a broken woman in third.
And winning by 33 seconds, Rob. They were together 600 or 800 metres out. That is an astonishing run by the Ethiopian on that final leg. Uganda, well, it's very, very tough to put together four strong runners on this, and if you have a significant weak link, it lets the whole team down to some degree, because you just cannot expect an athlete to produce anything special. Spain coming home, what, 10 seconds so behind Uganda. In sixth place, the Spaniards, the top European team.
Seventh place for the Canadians. That was tough. Well, Winford and Mbithi was on the second leg for Kenya when they took gold 2 years ago. That was a chastening experience for the Kenyan woman. What a win for the Ethiopians.
And Rob, I know you can't compare the distances because they have varied slightly, but the winning time for Kenya 2 years ago in Uganda was 22 minutes, 22 seconds. The winning time today, 25:49, almost 3.5 minutes slower. That underlines the nature of the course.
Yeah, and tells us how brutal some of the individual races are going to be. Nice finish there from the Danes. Wow. 25:49, a massive winning margin considering how close it was at the beginning of that anchor leg.
So we actually have all 10 teams in. Denmark closing in at 9, just 1 second ahead of...
Well, what a race. The Moroccans celebrate silver. It's all gold for Ethiopia.
See the pictures of the Moroccan team going for the silver medal.